Good morning. Welcome. Thanks for tuning in to Kila Chari Torah's daily review of Maimonides' 613 mitzvahs, the Sefer HaMitzvot of the Rambam for Friday, January the 7th. We spoke the last few days about prohibitions of work, traveling, and carrying out the Bet Din's punishments on Shabbos. So now let's look a little bit about those prohibitions as they apply to Yamim Tovim. So the next prohibition, next mitzvah, is the prohibition of working on the first day of Pesach. Now, for various reasons, which we can go into in greater detail if you'd care to discuss them, namely that for a considerable period of our history, most of the Jewish people lived outside of Israel, lived in Babylon specifically, later the diaspora all over the world, and it was difficult to get word of fixing the Jewish calendar. So as a result, we began keeping 2 days out of a Safek, Sfeika de Yoma, they called it in Aramaic, the doubtful status of which day was the first day of the month, which day was the Rosh Chodesh, and therefore which day was the 14th or 15th day of the month on which many of the holidays are celebrated. So in the diaspora, the custom remains to keep 2 days, while in Israel, with the exception of Rosh Hashanah, 1 day of the holiday is observed, Yom Kippur also. So the first day of Pesach, which is 2 days in the diaspora, we're forbidden to do labor, to do productive labor, which is called malacha. And we discussed that the other day when we talked about forbidden labors of Shabbat. The next mitzvah says that we have a prohibition of working on the 7th day of Pesach. You'll notice that we have 8 days in the diaspora. Again, that's a doubling of that 7th day. So, but the prohibition of work applies to the first, and outside of Israel, the 2nd day. And the next mitzvah, prohibition of working on the 7th, and in the diaspora, the 8th day of Pesach. Now, there is an exception to the rule, which is called ochel nefesh. We have a mitzvah of simcha on the Yom Tov, which involves eating meat, drinking wine for the men, having nice clothes, garments, new garments for the women, toys for the kids. We have to do things that bring about, awaken, and nurture happiness in ourselves and our families. So since eating the Yom Tov meal, and in the temple times bringing the Yom Tov offerings, is intrinsic part of the holiday, so we are permitted to cook food on the holidays for use on the holiday itself. We are only supposed to cook for the day, for each day on the day itself. In other words, on the 7th day of Pesach, we shouldn't be preparing for the 8th day. Rather, we can prepare on that day for the 7th day for what we're going to eat on the 7th, and on the 8th day for the 8th. We do have to be careful about when we warm things up, when we cook things, and so on. And of course, not to light a flame, but rather we're allowed on these days to move a flame, to light, let's say, a stove from the pilot light. Not to decrease it, diminish it, but to increase it in order to cook the food. We're getting a little bit technical here, but the idea is that we do have a prohibition of all the 39 categories of work that we discussed in connection to Shabbos, with the exception of food preparation. And we can go into more detail. Anyone who would like more background information on that, or more specific discussion of the details of these prohibitions and what's permitted, happy to study that with you at any time. Let's just do one more prohibition of working on Atzeres, which is the Talmud's term for Shavuos, festival of weeks. We count 7 complete weeks after Pesach. 49 days. The day after that, Pentecost, as some people call it. The 50th day is Shavuos, Zman Matan Torah Seinu, the celebration of receiving the Torah at Sinai. God's giving us the Torah. That is a Yom Tif, and also has the prohibition with it of work. Of course, in the diaspora, as we mentioned with Pesach, it's also a 2-day holiday. There is no Chol Hamoed there, so we don't get into the laws of Chol Hamoed, or quote unquote the last days of Sukkot. There's only 1 day or 2 days outside of Israel. Let's pause there, and we'll talk about other holidays after Shabbos. Speaking of Shabbos, we'll remind ourselves that candle lighting this afternoon is 4:39 p.m. Mincha and Ma'ariv, we unfortunately will not be gathering in shul. We're still under our semi quarantining in place. I forget even what we call it, staying at home, not coming to shul. We're still sort of have one foot in that world. So we're not gathering Friday nights for our regular Friday night minyan. Hopefully we'll resume that in good time. Were we to do so, we would start davening about 4:45, Mincha and Ma'ariv, Mincha, Kabbalat, Shabbat, and Ma'ariv. So if you'd like to daven the same time as everybody else, that is the time. Tomorrow morning Shachar is at 10 o'clock. Please register on the shul website if you have not done so already. Get a space for yourself. Make sure there's a seat. We do have limited seating in shul. On Shabbos morning, we've limited ourselves to whatever it is, about 20% of capacity, 15%, something like that. And we are, of course, observing masking and distancing. So if you're worried about that, not to worry. We are doing everything we can to keep everyone as safe as possible. Shabbos concludes tomorrow evening at 5:46, just about 5:45, and Zoom Havdalah, to which you're all invited. Please click on the link in your email from yesterday. That will take place at 5:56. Have a wonderful Shabbos, peaceful, happy, healthy, and we will speak to each other after Shabbos, please God. Shabbat Shalom.